guidance or love or morality or truth. And the scariest part? The more convinced we are that we aren't being manipulated, the more deeply we probably are. Because control doesn't usually come with a warning label. It doesn't announce itself. It's embedded in systems we're born into. It's woven into our language, our customs, even our sense of right and wrong. And if you've never questioned where your beliefs came from, really questioned them, there's a good chance they weren't yours to begin with. We grow up in a world that trains us how to think long before we ever know what thinking actually is. From the moment we can speak, we're told what's good, what's bad, what's polite, what's sinful, what's normal. And the problem with that kind of early conditioning is that by the time we're old enough to reflect, we've already internalized the rules of a game we didn't choose to play. Take something as basic as guilt. Why do we feel guilty? Because we violated a moral code? Or because someone convinced us that our natural instincts, curiosity, desire, doubt, were wrong? Guilt is one of the most powerful psychological tools of control. If you can make people feel guilty for simply being human, they'll police themselves. You won't even need to enforce anything. They'll do it for you. Now, this isn't just about religion or family values or cultural norms. Those are just delivery systems. What we're really talking about is influence and how it's used to shape behavior, sometimes for good, but often for obedience. Social psychologist Stanley Milgram once conducted an experiment in which ordinary people were instructed to administer electric shocks to strangers. Most participants obeyed, even when they thought the shocks might be lethal. Why? Because an authority figure told them to. That's it. No threats, no punishment, just a white lab coat and a calm voice. That's all it took to override a person's conscience. And Milgram's study wasn't unique. Again and again, we see how easily humans surrender their judgment when someone appears to speak with authority, especially when that authority is cloaked in certainty. Whether it's a preacher, a politician, or even a parent, the formula is the same. Claim moral superiority, define the rules, and punish dissent. This is why institutions love binary thinking. Heaven and hell. Good and evil. Us versus them. Because black and white categories are easier to control than complex questions. Once you divide people into saved and unsaved, faithful and heretic, you don't even have to explain yourself. You just point. And people fall in line. But what if the lines are fake? What if the categories were designed not to explain reality, but to shape it? Let's look at fear. Not the kind that keeps you from walking into traffic, but the kind that makes you afraid to question. Fear of being punished, shamed, rejected. That fear is incredibly useful if your goal is control. A child who asks the wrong question is scolded. A teenager who doubts is labeled rebellious. An adult who breaks with tradition is cast out. At every stage, the message is clear. Obedience is safer than truth. So we adapt. We learn to censor ourselves, to smile and nod even when we're doubting inside. Over time, we stop even noticing the contradiction. We become fluent in the language of conformity until questioning feels like betrayal. And what's wild is how often we think we're making our own choices, when really, we're just following a script. Think about the rituals people engage in, the prayers they repeat, the holidays they celebrate. So many of these behaviors are inherited. Not chosen, inherited, and the people performing them often couldn't explain why they do them, beyond, that's just how it is. But nothing just is. Every belief, every tradition, every rule came from somewhere. Someone wrote it. Someone decided what counted as sacred or sinful or forbidden. And those decisions weren't always wise or kind or based on truth. Sometimes they were based on power, on control, on keeping people compliant. Now, it's tempting to say, well, that was the past. Things are more open now. But are they? We still reward people who don't ask hard questions. We still stigmatize those who deviate from groupthink. We still elevate those who conform, whether to religious doctrine, political ideology, or cultural expectation. And we still flinch when someone challenges a sacred cow. Real freedom begins with doubt. Not cynicism, not despair. Just the willingness to ask, who benefits from me believing this? Who gets to define truth? And what happens if I step outside their framework? Those aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones. Because manipulation works best in silence. When people are too distracted, too obedient, or too afraid to challenge what they've been told. And the more we normalize obedience, the harder it becomes to even see the manipulation happening around us, or inside us. Take language. The words we use are soaked in assumptions. Words like sin, faith, holy, blessed. They carry weight, not because of what they mean objectively, but because of the authority we've been taught to attach to them. A word is just a sound until someone wraps it in meaning. And once that meaning is sacred, questioning it becomes taboo. But what if we stripped away that false authority? What if we saw belief systems as man-made tools instead of untouchable truths? Not evil, necessarily, but not exempt from scrutiny either. Some ideas help us grow. Others help someone else keep control. You can usually tell the difference by asking one thing. Can I challenge this without being punished? If the answer is no, if disagreement is met with shame, silence, or exile, you're not in a free space. You're in a controlled environment. That doesn't always mean the people in charge are malicious, but it does mean they've created a structure where their power depends on your obedience. And that structure can be found in many places, not just churches or temples. Schools, governments, workplaces, even families. Any place where questioning is discouraged becomes a breeding ground for control. But this isn't hopeless. Awareness changes things. Once you see the gears behind the curtain, it gets harder to be manipulated. Not impossible. We're all vulnerable, including those of us who think we're immune. But awareness gives you a chance to step out of automatic behavior, to notice the moment your emotions are being steered, to pause when fear is being used as a leash. The point isn't to become paranoid, it's to become conscious. To recognize that the most dangerous form of control is the one that feels like love. The one that disguises chains as safety. The one that says, this is for your own good, while silencing your questions. You don't have to reject every tradition, or rebel against every institution, but you should know where your beliefs came from. You should know who benefits from them. And most importantly, you should know that there's no such thing as a neutral system. Everything has a motive. Even the stories we tell ourselves. So if you've ever felt that quiet voice in the back of your mind, the one that says something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it. That voice might be your mind trying to wake up, and in a world designed to keep you asleep, that voice is everything.